The divisional round of playoffs is officially set. Bucks and Bills advance from the wild card round. Jason Kelce, not Travis, is officially now retiring after an Eagles collapse, an all-time Eagles collapse. Bill Belichick interviewing in Atlanta. Tons more to get to on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks to everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every stinking day. Appreciate all the everydayers, by the way, out there. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's start in Buffalo, where you're.
Let's start one other place, if you don't mind, there, BP.
Let's
we're recording this Tuesday noon Eastern, as we usually do. Feels a little weird. I feel like I should be, 3 hours from now, I should be sitting down to watch a playoff game and then another playoff game. Almost need 4 days, 5 days in a row with the 4 o'clock and a night start here Eastern. And
there's going to be 2 more games in 3 days on Saturday.
That's true.
Super fast.
It just got a little odd after a while. I was making the joke with you before. I felt like the dude in Clockwork Orange with my eyelids taped open or whatever. And then, my normal viewing day, I have Red Zone on. I don't see very many commercials. I feel like I saw the Gronk kicking it through the uprights commercial 4,000 times. The same commercials all 3 days in a row. Whatever those products are, I'm going to end up buying them, not even knowing it, subconsciously.
It works.
It's a lot.
I asked the question, and as soon as the Buffalo and Pittsburgh game got moved, and for me on the West Coast, it's different for you on the East Coast, but you had to wait all the way until 4:30 your time for the games to start. And for me on a Sunday to sit there and wait until 1:30 for a game to start PM, I was like, what do people do on the East Coast all morning? Because for me, it's 10 a.m. kickoff. You get up, have breakfast, maybe run a quick errand. There's not a lot you can do before. And my younger self, I would miss kickoff on the 10 a.m. games, right? Because I was a night owl, and I was like, oh, man, that'd be nice to be living on the East Coast. And I'd rather watch a game at midnight than watch it in the morning. Becoming a dad, that has changed quite a bit now. And I appreciate the early kickoff times and those primetime games ending at a decent hour. But I always wonder, what do people on the East Coast do all day? You actually get a little bit of a day before the game starts. So I guess it can be good and bad. But I was like, what do I do? Pacing around the house. I had to go to the gym and started doing some other things and realizing I had to do some stuff because I'm not going to sit there and wait for these games to kick off like I normally would on a Sunday.
Yeah, and I don't have a great answer for you because it did get to be a little monotonous 3 days in a row of, I can get some stuff done before kickoff, but not a lot. I can't go somewhere, I think one of those days I ended up taking a nap at 1:30 or something like that. And was sitting on the couch watching reruns of something and dozed off. And obviously Steelers were different. I had pregame show stuff, but it got a little crazy 3 days in a row and had a little bit of a COVID feel to it too.
Well, and most of these games weren't great. There was a lot of blowouts.
Right.
There was a lot of games where very quickly you realized one team was going to win. And I think that was the case for both of the games on Monday as well. And your Steelers put up a good fight, a really good season. Moral victories probably don't feel great for Steelers fans on Tuesday morning after getting eliminated from the playoffs, but it was a good season for what they had. And I think if you figure out quarterback going forward, you can build on this season. But it was obviously not to be for the Steelers in this one. No TJ Watt, and the Bills were just a better football team.
Yeah, I don't have, a whole lot to add to that. I can assure you, though, no one is saying moral victories around here. I mean, this isn't the normal fan base that this is what we're hearing is the Steelers have lost their last 5 playoff games. Okay, that's very true.
Well, everybody but one team loses their last playoff game every year.
Right, exactly. But the last 5 that they've been in, they've lost. 4 of them in the first round, and really not very competitive.
First round is the key there, losing in the first round, yeah.
They've been the team that sneaks in and then gets beat bad by the Chiefs or the Bills or whatever, and that's not settling well around here. But here's the one stat that is buzzing around Pittsburgh right now. So the last 5 playoff games they've been in, they're 0-5. In the first quarter of those games, they've been outscored 66-0. So
they scored a single time in the first quarter of those 5 playoff games. That's not good.
This one was 14-0 yesterday, and it's just been a Tomlin trend. I mean, that's what everyone's harping on now. It's like, okay, we get the game's over at the first quarter and we lose. So that's where it's at. I will give the Steelers credit. I thought they made this a lot more interesting and played much better after they kind of got hit by the blizzard, pun intended, of Bills Mafia and what they walked into and just not being as good a team and turn the ball over. I thought they played reasonably well for the last 3 quarters of the game, but they're going to lose this game more often than not, probably 8 or 9 out of 10 times in that building. Bills are good. And the number I have that I think is really exciting or telling about the Bills and their future is, since 2020, no matter what the circumstances are, playoffs or not, the Bills are 17-0 when Josh Allen doesn't turn the ball over. Their running backs could fumble 8 times. Their kickoff returner could, muff every punt.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't turn the ball over, they're undefeated. And I thought he was very professional in this game in that he knew he had the Steelers where he wanted them. He made some big plays, but that was playoff caliber, mature football. I'm not going to get crazy with the ball. There's some throws I could try, but I don't have to. Let's just win this thing,
A new mature Josh Allen in the 2024 bracket. That's an interesting one, and that could be trouble for the rest of the league. But yeah, the writing's, and hey, you're right. They played him to a draw the last 3 quarters of the game. Just gave him 14-0 in the first quarter. Why can't they score early? They're just a bad offense. Is that it?
Well, the logic around here is because Tomlin's an idiot and he doesn't prepare well and he gets outcoached in the big games, and they haven't won a Super Bowl recently. We only have 6 around here, so that's not enough. And that's the logic, though. I mean,
right. You can blame.
There's 66-0 is pretty bad.
He's overseeing the whole operation, so you can blame Tomlin for some of it, but he's not calling the offensive plays in the first quarter.
He's not George Pickens fumbling and then Kincaid gets a touchdown in the next play, I mean, obviously, but he's the only constant over those last 5 games, like Ben's gone, everyone else is
quarterbacks.
Gone. Yeah.
3 different quarterbacks, right? In those 5 games?
Definitely. I mean, Ben for many of them, obviously, Rudolph, and then they didn't go last year. So no, it's only been those.
No Pickett, no Trubisky then. Okay.
Correct. They're starting a playoff game. Correct.
31-17, the final. Buffalo Bills advance over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And next we'll get to the NFC side of things. Actually, let's take a quick peek at the divisional round now in the AFC. And so it is those Buffalo Bills who are going to be at home, and they are favored.
KC's coming there, yeah. Oh, are they?
They're Chiefs, yeah. So Kansas City on the road, the late game. This will be the last game of the divisional round Sunday. It is the Bills hosting the Kansas City Chiefs. Buffalo favored by 2.5 early. We'll see if that line changes at FanDuel. And it is the Texans that will be at the Ravens to start divisional weekend on Saturday. That is the 4:30 Eastern kickoff time. Houston Texans at Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Now,
yeah, they look like fun ones. I mean, KC in Buffalo is fun.
These are all great games. I'm jacked up for the divisional round as well. So let's look NFC side now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers advancing over the Philadelphia Eagles, and maybe talk a little bit about this Eagles collapse because it is absolutely an all-timer. Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. At the start of the new year, every small business is asking themselves the same question. And it's not all that different than what you or I are asking ourselves with our New Year's resolutions. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024. LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. It's no different than an NFL team. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And when you're talking about professionals and where to find professionals, LinkedIn isn't just some other job board. We're talking about a vast network at LinkedIn of 1 billion professionals. It makes it the best place to hire, and hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So the Philadelphia Eagles, 1-6 down the stretch, lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they were down early, and it had a similar feel to a lot of the blowout games we saw here on wildcard weekend, and it was 32-9. They put up a little bit of a fight before halftime, scored 9 points, missed that 2-point conversion and the tush push before halftime. 32-9 though was the final, and really the two stories here was the collapse of the Philadelphia Eagles, how bad they looked, and Baker Mayfield, 337 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, and he's been phenomenal in his short career as a playoff quarterback, first with the Cleveland Browns and now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I don't want to take anything away from the Bucs. Congratulations on what has been a good year. You win the division. All of us thought that this was going to be a eat your vegetables kind of season for them. They have a ton of dead cap money from the Brady era. You know, pay off your credit cards from maxing them out for that era and getting that ring. But they're better than that.
About them being sellers at the trade deadline.
And, yeah. Mike Evans.
Mike Evans being somewhere else. He might become a Buccaneer for life now. This is a new direction from what we thought was happening in Halloween.
Yeah, I think they got a big boost with their offensive coordinator. Todd Bowles did a better job. Mayfield is a great story and is playing quite well. Defense is solid. They actually have some semblance of a running game they didn't last year. So congrats to the Bucs. And frankly, they're a much better team than the Eagles right now, who are a disaster. I mean, I don't remember. I have a short memory, but I don't remember collapses to this magnitude where if I were to power rank the 32 teams, they might be like 22nd. Like, I don't know if they beat the Bears right now. I don't think they do. I don't know if they beat the Raiders. You know what I mean? Like, let alone playoff teams. Their body language is terrible. They kind of bicker with each other on the sidelines. It's very clear that losing both coordinators had a tidal wave effect to both sides of the ball. The back seven of the defense just doesn't have any good players, and the front starting to kind of look old. The O-line is a strength, but they still didn't run the ball at all in this game, and Hurts takes a step back, and you don't have A.J. Brown. You know, like, I don't know if they'd beat many teams right now.
No, and they were number one. They were the number one power ranked team going into week 13. They played the 49ers. The 49ers beat them 42-19. They were 1-6 after that, barely beating the Giants. Then the Giants beat them again a couple of weeks after that. And I've never seen a team go from being the most confident, chest puffed out team, number one power ranked team in the NFL late in the season, week 13, and
almost won the Super Bowl last year. I mean, like 3 points away or whatever. Right?
Yeah, they were close. They were a play or two away from winning the Super Bowl, and they were the worst team. And it'd be close between them and the Steelers, maybe as far as these playoff teams go. And
but a lot of non-playoff teams are better than them right now.
Yes, no confidence whatsoever. Yeah. They kind of knew they weren't going to win. I've never seen a team go with this little confidence, already talking about what's wrong with their team going into their first playoff game that they hadn't even played yet. So mentally, they were just completely a broken football team. And I don't know how they were so good if their coordinators were that bad. So I don't think you can just blame the coordinators, even though that's the easiest thing to point to, because there's something else going on there. And it was just a complete lack of confidence for the Eagles down the stretch. And I'm fascinated by the Jason Kelce retirement. We already knew this was probably going to be his last season, but he does a podcast with his brother Travis, and it's called New Heights, Great Heights, something like that. And their podcast last week, they had to stop in the middle of the podcast because Jason Kelce was upset by something his brother said. And they had to come back and finish the rest of the episode the next day. And it's because Jason Kelce knew it was going to be his last game. He knew he's retiring, okay. But he also knew that this was going to be the last game. That's how little confidence they had. And it was something that Travis Kelce said, oh yeah, I'm already starting to hear some excuses about, what's going on here. And it's, little brother getting in older brother's feelings a little bit. He had to stop the podcast. They came back the next day to record. So he knew he was retiring, but he also knew that it wasn't going to continue past this weekend. Like, this team was defeated. I've never seen anything like it.
That's bad. And they kept showing Jeffrey Lurie, the owner, in the box, and boy,
not happy.
Not thrilled with how things have gone. And then, public embarrassment doesn't settle real well with billionaires. I mean, in general, and that's exactly what happens sometimes at the end of seasons or standalone playoff games like this. There could be changes. I mean, it wouldn't blow me away if our top story tomorrow is Vrabel's going to the Eagles, or,
I mean, it's tie into our next conversation about Bill Belichick, because I wouldn't be shocked if either the Cowboys or the Eagles are both trying to interview Bill Belichick or trying to prevent the other one from getting Bill Belichick. And we already know Belichick is interviewing maybe as we speak right now with the Dolphins, or with the Atlanta Falcons on Tuesday. We'll talk about the Dolphins in a little bit as well. But real quick with Jason Kelce.
We'll talk a little more Kelce too.
Don't feel too bad about Jason Kelce. Hall of Fame career, unbelievable player, but he did get his ring a few years ago too. This isn't the way he probably wanted to go out, but just a phenomenal career for Jason Kelce, and a Hall of Famer. I think in a little bit more difficult for interior offensive linemen, but I think he has the publicity that some other interior offensive linemen might not have in their careers to get over that hump and become a true Hall of Famer in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's not the greatest way to go out, but 99% of players don't get to go out on a white stallion, and even the best of them, the Hall of Famers,
confetti spread over over their domes while they're retiring. Yeah,
that's usually not how it goes. And in terms of his legacy, no offense, but I think he sold him short. Like, I think he's in the conversation for best center ever. I mean, the way that he moves and gets to the second level and still doesn't compromise against nose tackles and power players. I mean, he's a rare breed at his position. Like, again, I'm so Steeler centric, but I mean, I put him up against like Mike Webster. You know what I mean? Like, all time, whoever's on the all time team. There's not. I think Kelce's right there, and clearly the best center of the last 2 decades.
Winning the leverage battle. He's probably the biggest reason that the brotherly shove has been so successful, because he gets under everybody. And it was pretty amazing. Vita Vea, the biggest man in the league, kind of might have gotten under him a little bit on that.
The last one didn't go so well. Yeah.
And did we figure something out as well for defending that is getting the quarterback sideways? So maybe the way to defend it is kind of at an angle, push. Don't try to go straight at him. You go at an angle, get the quarterback pointed sideways a little bit, not pulling his head off, twisting.
I was say grabbing him by the helmet helps.
Jeez, no penalty on that. That was clearly a foul, but a lot potentially to change for a team that's in the place that Eagles should be right now.
Yeah, and you wonder, they're not quite to the Kelce level, but what about the Fletcher Cox and the Brandon Grahams and the guys that would be like in the Eagles Hall of Fame? I mean, it's a time to move on for them, or maybe they should have a year ago and taken somewhat of a youth movement. And I mean, they basically publicly tell us, we don't care about safeties and linebackers. I mean, like, their actions scream that. They have to reevaluate things and be like, well, we can't stop the Niners, let alone, well, especially the Niners, but any team with the jokers we got at linebacker and safety now. We might have to evaluate how we evaluate talent and team building.
Their back seven was bad. They can't tackle.
Really bad.
Can't cover anybody. Kevin Byard, they brought in at the deadline. That didn't really help much.
Yeah.
And those young players.
Another old guy.
Right. Yeah. And those young players really need to step up and develop into the next Grahams and Fletcher Cox. And, they've got a lot of talent up front, and they've got high-end draft picks up there. They have to be that, though. They have to become that. They don't just get gifted that because they were high draft picks.
Yeah, the Jalen Carters and Jordan Davises and all those guys need to take it
Nolan
over.
Smith, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now Beef Jurgens has to not turn into Kelce, but not be a massive drop off, and hopefully Lane Johnson doesn't slip, or right.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of work to be done, and of course we'll go through those, and as teams are eliminated, and we have a ton to get into in this offseason with every single team, and what those outlooks are, and fixing those teams, and what they need to do to get to a better place in 2024. But let's talk Bill Belichick, Falcons. Let's talk Tua and the Dolphins next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. It's playoff time, so there's still tons of time to get in on that NFL action with FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose on that first $5 bet. And you can use that extra $150 to have tons of fun live same game parlays. Find new bets in the new Explore tab at FanDuel. The app is super easy to use. Love the website interface as well. On the desktop version, you make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. My favorite way to bet is with parlays and those draft props as well. And for a lot of teams, growing number of teams now every week in the NFL, it is draft season. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. Again, that is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is also brought to you by Jace Medical and the Jace Case. And we always come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life. But let's talk just for a minute about preparing for real life. And according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin. And you might be in a place traveling and not having the easiest access to certain medications that you or your family might need, and specific items in your Jace case that you or your family might need. There's been pandemics. There's been natural disasters. So the Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, many, many others. And all you got to do is visit jacemedical.com, complete your physician visit, and a board-certified physician. Your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost, and you will be prepared with the medications you potentially might need for you or your family. So go to jacemedical.com, that is JASE medical.com, and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order, jacemedical.com. We were talking about it off the air, Matt. I cannot picture Bill Belichick wearing black and red on the sideline. But Bill Belichick, he's taking interviews, which tells you he is not done. And the Atlanta Falcons looks like they're first up for Bill Belichick. We'll see if some other jobs open. Arthur Blank probably won't be shy in opening up his checkbook. So what do you think? Bill Belichick and the Atlanta Falcons, man.
I like it. I think this is the spot for him, to be honest. I mean, unless Jerry Jones goes bonkers or something like that. I've been told, or I basically know this for a fact, that Arthur Blank and Kraft are very close. As NFL owners go, those two are buds, whatever. I mean, and I'm sure they've had a lot of Belichick conversations over the years. 90% of them are, Bill's pretty awesome and we're winning a lot of games. You know what I mean? And I'm sure Atlanta could look at this and be like, we don't have that kind of history. Our ring of honor doesn't look like the Patriots. We don't have the hardware. I'm not a young man. I would like to attempt that. And I think Belichick looks at the situation like there's an O-line in place. There's skill guys in place. The defense took massive steps forward last year. They were awful before, and now they're mediocre to above. Maybe he could put a little spin on that and scheme it up. And obviously quarterback is the issue. I mean, it's really the only negative to take that job is how do I get my quarterback? But if you could spend a whole off season with that in mind, and I'm sure he has some ideas, or, hey, Mr. Blank, I want to put an offer into the Bears to get to number 1, or Fields, or the second free agent's open. I'm going to sign my old buddy Jacoby Brissett and then go from there to get something else.
I think the Brissett thing can happen no matter what else happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a guy. You have to have some person in your building.
Yeah, and you're probably the best team in the division with Brissett. Belichick plus Brissett, I think, is better than the Saints or Bucs. Well, close at least.
Belichick's always been a trade down guy.
Yeah,
but he's not the youngest guy anymore. Moving up to number one, that would be an anti-Belichick move. But if you're Bill Belichick, you think you have enough pieces in place there, go get the best quarterback of the draft and say, let's screw it. Let's go do this thing and make one last run here.
And we'll fill the other spots with the cap space we have, maybe. Yeah. I mean, they traded up for Julio back when. And I mean, it's somewhat of an aggressive organization.
I think Arthur Blank would run through a wall. And
I think so.
Checkbook if Bill Belichick started talking like that in their meeting, I think.
I mean, just talk about invigorating a fan base that's Falcons games would be packed, and especially if you end up with Caleb Williams or Drake May or something like that, you'd sell a whole lot of jerseys. You know what I mean? Like the whole town would feel the ripple effects.
You probably can't go up to 2. You got to go up to 1 anyway.
I would imagine. Or
at least maybe 3. Could he do?
I'd say 3 or 4. Maybe you love the LSU kid, or whatever. I mean,
little wink and nod deal with his old team in New England to go get a quarterback at 3.
Yeah, maybe.
I love
or just sign Kirk Cousins and roll the dice. Yeah,
I could absolutely see Kirk Cousins. It'd be a nice fit for Bill Belichick.
I like that.
Milk Kiper is an OG. He said yesterday that the Bears could potentially get the 8th overall pick in the draft from the Falcons for Justin Fields.
Oh, I
thought that sounded kind of nutty. I think it's about 50, 60 picks too high if you're really hoping to get a pick for Justin Fields.
At least 32 picks too high for me.
Right. Yeah.
At least. I mean,
we're on the same
team. Contract situations.
Right.
Yeah. You gotta pick up his 5th-year option or not. That's cumbersome.
So super interesting offseason potentially here for the Atlanta Falcons, where they're at. Obvious needs at quarterback, picking 8 in an outside looking in area, and might be a better year to trade up to number 1 than it was last year for their division rival Carolina Panthers too. But they the Panthers and say, oh yeah, that's bad. Let's not do that, because let's not spend all that for a coin flip.
Exactly.
Tua, Dolphins.
Yeah, I wanted to have a quick conversation on this because I guess their owner said we plan on Tua being here a real long time or something like that. A big vote of confidence. And I think this is a conversation that we should have throughout the offseason because I really have mixed feelings about it. Is this a Daniel Jones situation? I think he's better than that. Don't get me wrong. But he's a certain type. Can he get you over the top? He's never going to be the Josh Allen, Mahomes, even Herbert superhero, of course. But you could do a lot worse. And the reason I bring it up is usually I'm on the side of trade Tua and go get something else and roll the dice. I mean, like kind of the Garoppolo trying to turn him into Lance conversation, or Goff turn him into Stafford conversation. But I was listening to the Move of 6 podcast, and DJ or Bucky, one of them, just mentioned almost all quarterbacks are going to do poorly in that environment in Kansas City. I mean, if that's the only thing you're going to hold against this guy, well, there's a long list of dudes that would struggle there. And then they even threw out, go look at Peyton Manning and Drew Brees' win-loss record on the road in the playoffs. So I did. Drew Brees was 2-5 outside the Superdome in the playoffs. Peyton Manning 3-5 outside of Indianapolis in the playoffs. Like, he's not as good as those two, of course, but many, many, many great quarterbacks in history kind of need to be home or are built for their dome or built for their warm weather. And it doesn't mean it's wrong. You know what I mean?
You went up against one of the best coaches and the best quarterback in the NFL, and you were underdogs on the road for a reason.
Right.
You're not expected to win that game. So if you're basing things on that game for Tua, that's a pretty unfair situation. And that's wild. Yeah. To look at past Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks and their records in the postseason. I think everyone probably overrates what they think great teams' records were in the postseason.
All right. I know we're up against it, but this is something I've been really harping on lately. Is if you're a coach or quarterback and you end your career at 500 in the postseason, you're a freaking superstar. You know, so real quick, here's the magic number, 13. And it didn't used to be 13. This is since there's been 7 teams in each division. There's only 13 wins that the NFL hands out every year. There's only 13 available. And if you win the Super Bowl, you got 3 or 4 of them. If you're the Super Bowl runner-up, you got 2 or 3 of them. That leaves like 6 or 7 else for the other dozen teams. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to go well. You know, like being 0-1 in the playoff game or being 1-1 is awesome. You know, like Peyton Manning was 3-5 on the road. You know, like I think people think, oh, well, look at his playoff record. Lamar's only 1-3. He stinks. Well, if he wins next week and he's 2-3, he's better than most in terms of winning percentage.
Right. And if you want to point to a game, point to week 18 against the Bills for the Dolphins, because
that's when they lost.
You go get yourself home field advantage in the playoffs, and then let's talk.
And definitely there's some teams that's way more important. You know, the Saints, the Colts of those eras, the Dolphins, and maybe you have to adjust accordingly. We need to become a better bad weather team, especially because we're the only warm weather team in our division. You know, weeks 12 on could be in New York, New England, Buffalo, etc. Maybe we need to add, you know, Mike Allstott,
and hope that you don't get -7 degrees too. Like, you know, bad weather's one thing,
right?
That's just a tough draw for the Dolphins. On top of being on the road.
And he didn't look good, and I don't think Tua is a superstar, and I think he's got a low ceiling, but he tore up a lot of good teams this year, and to hold that game against him and say he's got no chance to be good, I mean, it's crazy.
And bottom line, Tua's sticking, and he's getting paid by the Dolphins.
I think so.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you check out the first of its kind 24/7 streaming Locked On Sports Today channel. Find it on YouTube. Find it on your Amazon Fire. Find it on more and more smart TVs to come. We'll let you know when that happens. And, of course, Matt and I back tomorrow to break everything down. We're looking ahead at divisional games. It's draft season for a growing number of teams in the NFL as well. Talk to you then right here, Peacock and Williamson.